What's it like to be in the room and hear live from some of the world's most renowned leadership authors and experts like John Maxwell, Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins, and more? Well, if you love leadership, personal growth, and team development, this episode is for you, because today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, we are joined by David Moser, Operations Manager of Oakridge Dairy, who recently attended the 2025 Entre-Leadership Summit in Denver, Colorado. David oversees the dairy, cropping, and creamery enterprises of Oakridge Dairy, the single largest dairy site in New England. I've invited him to share with us today the highlight reel of this high-impact event, including the speakers and messages that he has taken back to the dairy and wasted no time putting to work, as well as some gold nuggets that you can grab hold of to uplevel your own game as a leader. This is the Uplevel Dairy Podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will uplevel your skill set and your mindset so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. This episode is sponsored by Uplevel Dairy Podcast founding partner Adiseo, a global leader in nutrition solutions and premier provider of rumen-protected methionine for dairy producers who want to optimize milk production, capture more value from components, and maintain the health of their high-performing herds. Feed is the greatest expense on any dairy operation, and don't you want to know how an adjustment to the ration will affect your bottom line? Adiseo empowers nutritionists to make informed ration balancing decisions with MilkPay.com. Customizable to your dairy's own data, this profitability calculator puts the power of real-time milk market information in the palm of your hand. Find out how much your latest ration change is really costing you with the free MilkPay app available on iOS and through MilkPay.com. David, first of all, thanks for jumping on with me today for the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Why don't you take a moment and just introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about you and what your role is there at Oakridge Dairy.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Peggy. My role at Oakridge Dairy is I work on the operations team, and I work with all the different segments of our company, the dairy guys, the crop guys, and with our creamery while we produce our own milk. I'm married and I have 4 wonderful children who are my pride and joy and what I love to devote my time to when I'm not at work.
And to give, kind of an overview of Oakridge Dairy, for those that aren't familiar, how would you describe it?
So Oakridge Dairy, I think, is unique in a lot of ways. So we are the biggest single site dairy in New England. We are in the center part of Connecticut, surrounded by people, houses, and our community. And we operate a 2,600 cow dairy in the center of Connecticut with a lot of goals and visions to being part of the community. We work hard at that. And we also produce food for our community. So we're proud to be a contributor where we can actually milk the cows and feed the people in our own community.
And when you talk about the feeding the people in your own community, that takes a shape of direct marketing of Oakridge Dairy branded products, correct?
That is correct. Yep. So we have a creamery where we're producing multiple different milk products. We're producing some ice cream products, and we process some juice as well. And we are sustainably packaging that in glass bottles. We are partners with a home delivery service called the Modern Milkman that delivers to the doorstep. And they're also in a lot of grocery stores in the area. Our goal is to bring healthy, nutritious products right to people's homes and to be a part of their staple.
So your community involvement is feeding the community literally, but also touching the community very closely because, as you said, you were in the middle of a lot of people in Connecticut. And so with that, there are certain challenges that you face as a business. I put that out there, David, because this leads into the reason that I wanted to have a conversation with you specifically today, because really it's about leadership and the way that you've had to transform yourself as a leader and bring the team along with you to be able to accomplish some pretty big things in the space that you're at. And so you just got back in the past couple of weeks from a really high impact event that is transformative for you and for others, and that has been on my radar for a couple of years as well. Tell us about the place you just came back from.
So last week I spent time in Denver, Colorado at Entre-Leadership Summit. It's an amazing event where world-class speakers come and talk about leadership and how to personally grow as a person, as a leader, and to become the best version that God has designed each one of us to be.
So when you say Entre-Leadership, this is a Dave Ramsey program, but not the Dave Ramsey that many of us might think of right off the bat of that financial planning, financial management. This is really truly leadership based content in a leadership based summit. And so for you, what attracted you to this concept in the first place?
We have some friends that have attended the conference for a lot of years, and Dave Ramsey and his team, they put on an incredible conference, and they focus a lot on the fundamental principles of leadership, and they weave in, which I believe is so important, and they share the same value, that a lot of it relates back to the Bible and the fundamental principles that Christ gave us, and how to be a servant leader, and the principles from there. And a lot of the speakers recognize that and bring that out, in as well as being some of the greatest minds in leadership there. It's really amazing to see how it's all connected. And personally, I believe first I have to grow as a Christian, second I have to grow as a father and a husband, and third as a leader. And if I do it in that order, I would be successful in all three. And if I just try to do one, it won't work. And every time I go to this event, I've been multiple times, they really focus on all three of those things. They believe that all three are necessary. And I think without any of them, it doesn't work.
So, as you talked about that, David, you mentioned that there are several speakers that all share those core values that are really Bible based values and Christian based values. And when you talk about the people in the room, the voices in the room, like this is John Maxwell, Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, Patrick Lencioni, Dave Ramsey himself. Who else was on that highlight reel of some of the speakers that you got in-person access to at Entre-Leadership Summit?
Yes, so those four are definitely on the highlights for sure. Another one that is really great is Jefferson Fisher. He talks about communication. Chris Voss, he was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. Incredible speaker. And Elizabeth Dixon was another one. She spent some time at Chick-fil-A and talked about culture and experience, and just there's so many great ones. That's just to name a few. Each person there is incredible. And back to the biblical side of it, Dave opened up with a verse from the Bible, Romans 12:2, and it talks about being transformed, not conformed. And that was the kickoff for the whole event, and how as people we are transformed as leaders and not being conformed to the world. And in that, to start with that mindset at an event where there's 2,700 leaders, it's just an amazing experience.
So that spoke to you right off the bat, huh?
Yes, correct. And Dave does a great job. He has tons of energy, and it is all about leadership and growth, and then bringing it back to the principles that so many of these great minds have wrote in their books. Each one of them gets to share their perspective and then where they came from. It's truly amazing.
So I had tasked you, David, with choosing the best speaker that you heard, the one that had a message that truly hit home. That had to be really hard. So if you have more than one to share, that is fine too. But what were some of those key takeaways that you got, and who did you receive them from that stacked list of incredible people that are demonstrating every day in life and in business truly values-based leadership?
So each speaker is really incredible, and I think each one has great takeaways. Two of my personal favorites would be John Maxwell and Patrick Lencioni. John Maxwell is 78 years old. He has spoken at multiple events that I've been at, and is just truly full of wisdom. He has a desire to serve, and you can feel it in everything he says. He says he still has 14 books he's working on at 78 years old. Like, he just wants to give back, and it is super great. And John's message this year was everything worthwhile is uphill. And that really just sinks in for me. His message is nothing happens by accident. Like, you never slide or drift to a desired location. It takes work, and it's all uphill. And when you recognize that you have to put the work in, then it's no longer hard. You just know it's all uphill. And he had 6 points that were just all these things to one step at a time, continuing moving forward, all these different things that, hey, it's uphill. Just embrace that and continue to move forward, because it's not by accident that any of us grow. And if we want to grow, we have to do things and be intentional. And that just speaks to me so much. I like to think I'm intentional, and he just reiterates that you have to be. So my goal is to grow, to be more intentional.
So, with that specific example that you started here with, David, is there anything that's been going on for you recently that, as a leader, as a manager, as a father, that really just hit home for something that you've been dealing with lately?
So there's been some situations with things that have been difficult lately, and to know that it's going to be hard and to continue doing the right thing and investing in relationships and being the best version of yourself, doing the right thing, even though it doesn't seem like it's the right thing in the moment, or maybe it is the right thing in the moment, but it's not the thing that you want to do. And just recognize that it's hard. And someone like John Maxwell that can stand on a stage and say from a life of experiences, hey, it is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for you. It's hard. Just keep going. Just keep doing it. You're going to look back, and I don't know if it was him or another speaker, but they said someone that had a bunch of trials in their life to look back and say, hey, if you could get a redo card, which one would you redo? But the guy basically said, none of them. I've made mistakes, but all of those mistakes and all of those trials that in the moment were terrible made me who I am today. And if I wouldn't have had those, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think that's John's perspective, is it's going to be hard, but that's going to shape you to who you are in the future. And to continue to push forward is you have to.
What I really appreciate about what you're sharing here, David, with this perspective is I think it's a little countercultural right now, because what I observe on whether it's social media or in podcasts and some of the things that I'm listening to, sometimes there's this mindset or this belief that things should come easy, or that you can somehow manipulate that or believe for it enough that it will come easy. And as a mother, right, I see that messaging sometimes too when we think about developing our kids. But what you're sharing brings it back to this level of acceptance of doing hard things, and not doing it because it's hard, but because it's just plain what it's going to take.
The other thing that I think is what you say is it seems a little counterculture. All of these speakers are willing to say what needs to be said, not necessarily what's easy to hear. I think that's so important. So when you go to a leadership event, you should be stretched and you should be tried and you should be pushed. None of it's new concepts. It's all concepts that we know, but we have to be reminded, or I have to be reminded, that it's not always the easy path that's right. But it is, the right way is hard. And that's okay, because it's hard for everybody. And if we have to continue to push, that's what we're called to do, is to continue to push forward.
What a great takeaway. And I know you have more. So, what else is on your list of some of your favorite speakers and what you walked away with from them?
Another personal favorite is Pat Lencioni. He has developed something called the working genius, and describes it, if I can use his words, something to the effect of it's a personality assessment that finds your God-given talents. And those really have changed Oakridge. So we've heard Pat speak. He's at Entree almost every year, and we've heard him speak multiple times, and we've used this assessment on our team, and it really helps us back to some of Jim Collins' concepts of the right people and the right seat on the bus. And that is so critical. And Jim says, get the who right. And Pat Lencioni's model really helps find the right who. As you're working through things, is there's all of us have talents, and some of those talents really bring us joy in life. And when we can be working in our God-given talents that bring us joy, we're going to do our most effective work. So with a team, how do we find where each person, what brings them joy, and then use them in that area? Because that's going to be the most effective way to have them on a team, and trying to work back and forth. And not one talent is better than the other. All the talents are necessary, It just, each talent is needed at a specific time in a decision or in a project, and using that talent when it's needed is the way to fulfill each person and then to bring the whole team to greater good, because you need all of them. Not one person can do it. So it's trying to fit those pieces together to continue progress.
So when you reference these different categories within Working Genius and how each one has a role and a fit, you and your team have done this assessment. Where do you fall into that fit of Working Genius?
So the two that I fall into on Working Genius would be a galvanizer and tenacity. So Pat has described those as a galvanizer is someone that can get excited about an idea and get the whole team excited about it. I like to think of it as a cheerleader. So someone that can get people excited and then to get momentum around an idea, why it's good, how it's going to help us. And then tenacity is my other talent, and that is the talent of executing to 100%. So a lot of times projects get to 80%, it's good enough. Well, I like to see things all the way through, and I like to use that talent to make sure at Oakridge we complete our tasks. And I think that's a attribute, because 80% is good, but 100% is where you can really see the last benefit.
Okay, so you have done this work of identifying where you're at in that scale, but how does that play out with maybe a few members of your team? What have you seen come out in others as you recognize where their working geniuses lie? And how has that resulted in some successful team execution?
So I think the biggest one that probably jumps off at you is tenacity, and that's finishing things all the way. And when you have a team member that always struggles to get the last part of it done, and then you do Working Genius, and tenacity is a frustration of theirs, it just clicks. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe we should give them someone to help them with that last piece. But this person has incredible ideas, and they have the Working Genius of invention or wonder. And if we never had this person, we would never come up with anything new. It would just be the same every day. So it's just trying to understand and see where each person is. And then when you know that, is to not give them excuses that they can't finish projects, but to understand that it's going to be a little extra hard for them. And then when they know that, they can put extra energy into that category.
But then you still see their value of what they're bringing to the front end of the project from that idea generation standpoint, huh?
Yes, exactly. And then another one that I didn't mention that is also so critical is the gift of discernment. And that's someone that just has a gut instinct about things. And that person is super incredible to have on your team, or to know someone that has that, because you can just ask them. And sometimes that person can come across negative or pessimistic until you realize that they're just telling you this because they care and they want it to be a success. They just know it's not going to work. So they're just telling you. And sometimes that can come across the wrong way. But if you know that's their talent and that's what they're good at, it's like, oh, I need this. I need to know that my idea is not going to work. Because if I did it, I'd find out 3 weeks later, but this person just knows today it's not going to work.
So I'm laughing because I always tell my husband that he has the gift of discernment. And for me, it was super beneficial when I finally realized that, because it can come off as negativity. It can come off as shooting down of ideas, but some people, they have that gift where they can see through things so fast. They can see through people. They can see through a finish line of a race that hasn't started. And they can see everything that could go wrong, every risk factor. And so that's where that understanding I can see can be really helpful from a team standpoint of it's not that one person is trying to conscientiously work against the other. It's more of understanding where they're coming from as a gift for one, but also as a motivation for the greater good. Is this making sense, or is this resonating with you and your experience?
100%. And I'm laughing because my wife has the gift as well. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's one of those things in a marriage that is incredibly beneficial and can be challenging if you don't know or can't like put the words around that. So Working Genius not only has helped us at work, but in my marriage, understanding that in the relationship that, hey, this is because I love you or because I care about the team, not because I just don't think it's a good idea. Or putting all the pieces together to see how people are going to fit, or I just have a gut that, you know what, this team member is not going to be a good fit. And that is just so incredibly beneficial. Can be challenging if you don't have the words to put around it. And I think that's what Pat did in such an incredible way, was to give all of us a model and then the words to say, hey, this is why they're that way. And this is how God designed them, made them, and it's super beneficial. So use it to benefit the team.
Awesome takeaways. As you said, you've done this work with the team of doing that working genius assessment and really identifying who is in what categories for that. But then to get the refresher from Patrick Lencioni in person had to be just a super, super reignition of that little fire, because sometimes we do things, right? We do the work and then we get busy, and a year or two later, we're not constantly revisiting or being reminded of it. Sometimes we forget how valuable it was in the first place. So that one was a big one for you. What else did you get out of your time with some of the greatest leaders and speakers in the world?
Another one that really struck home to me was Chris Voss. So he was the lead hostage negotiator in the FBI. And probably the one thing, he had lots of good points. He writes the book, Never Split the Difference, or something to that extent. But his one comment that I have in my notes is empathy is power. And that is being able to understand what someone else is going through. He also made the point that having a similar experience or relatable experience doesn't always necessarily help. It's just being able to understand them. You don't have to have a story that, like, someone tells you a story like, oh, I had that too. That's not necessarily helpful. That actually shuts people down. So just having that empathy and hearing them, listening and understanding gives you a tremendous amount of power. You don't actually have to then take it to a relatable story, which was just not what we always hear, and was super great. And I think it's really applicable.
Wow. So have you put that one to work since you got home?
I'm trying. That is another thing that I'm not real great at, is listening and then being that empathetic listener. And that's something I try to grow in, and something I will continue to grow. Just a really good reminder on that one. So another one, Elizabeth Dixon. So she spent some time at Chick-fil-A, but she talked about culture. And I really like the way she defined it. And I'm not sure I'm going to get the words exactly the same, but something to this effect. Culture is what your customer experiences when they encounter your brand, and it's what your employees experience when they encounter you as the leader. And that really hit home. So it's what the customer gets when they interact with your brand, and it's what the employee gets when they interact with you. And they both have to match. If your customer experience isn't going to be great, if your employee experience isn't great. I like how her culture ties both of them together, because I think sometimes we can think that if we just have a great image for our brand, it's going to be great. But if the internal employees are in turmoil, the brand image can't last. It's not sustainable. So I think those two are so tightly connected. That I just really appreciate that definition.
And that really fits for Oakridge Dairy, doesn't it? Being consumer facing and also having an internal team, obviously with the dairy and cropping and everything else. And had you ever really looked at it that way before?
I think I've thought about that. I believe that, but to have someone stand up on a stage and like say, yes, that is how it works, it helps you reiterate this is the direction we need to continue on it. Because we've had some experiences at Oakridge where internally we've had bumps, and it's been a struggle, and we're trying to portray a great image, but it's not perfect. And I've watched over the years as we've gotten better internally, externally gets better. And it just goes hand in hand. And it was the definition of putting that together. I'm not great with words, but putting that together really hit home for me. And if we can have an incredible internal experience, our customers, when they consume our products, are going to have an incredible experience. And it takes an incredible team to create that incredible experience on the outside.
So when you look at putting that into practice at Oakridge, how do you bridge that culture, that perception, internal to external? What does that look like in action?
That's a great question. So one thing we started this spring was, so we milk cows, we feed cows, we grow the crops, and then we process milk and put it in glass bottles. A couple months back, we decided to start an employee benefit that each employee gets to take home milk as part of a benefit for free. So each employee currently gets 4 bottles of milk to take home and to feed their family. And that connection has been incredible. So not only do the guys that take care of cows, make sure they're healthy, milk cows, get to do that on a daily basis and see milk flowing through the unit or the pipe or whatever it is. Not then they get to go into the break room, see a glass fridge with all the products that we make in it, and then they get to take that product home and give it to their families. It just connects that line so well and gives our team so much ownership and pride in what they're doing. And I think it's just really bringing us to the next level of what I do matters. When it leaves in a big semi truck, it's great. We're feeding people, but it's totally different when it leaves in the passenger seat next to you on the way home, knowing that you helped make that food that you're going to feed to your kids. And then how many other kids you're feeding. So that connection piece, I feel like is been super great for us.
What a powerful example, David. And the perspective shift that comes to mind as you talk about that is, I think, so much in dairy farming. We talk about this mindset of feeding the world, which is beautiful and motivating, but sometimes intangible. And especially if we've grown up in it, maybe like we just have that ingrained in us, but it's still a little ambiguous. But when you can literally draw a direct connection from employee to product to their own table, like that, you shifted that motto from feeding the world to feeding the community and drilled it right into feeding your own family. That's cool.
Yeah, and it really lives into our vision and our mission. And as we developed as a company and developed the vision and mission statement, our vision is to be the farmer of the future in a world where people know their farmer. So the goal in that is that we're transparent, people can trust us and know where their food comes from. And our mission is to build a better future for families by producing safe and healthy food while delivering value to our employees, our owners, and our community. And connecting those culture pieces, like Elizabeth talked about, is so critical as we live into that in the future.
Sometimes we set up these vision statements and mission statements, and they maybe live on a wall or they live on a document in a book, or you have yours right there, but you're literally living it. And that's the difference between it just being on that wall behind you and being embedded in the people that are part of the team and doing hard things every day. Go back to one of your first key points of expect to do hard things, but you can't expect to do big and impactful things by doing easy stuff. Full circle, right? Of delivering on that mission, but really, really making it matter and making it meaningful. So cool.
And I think this Entre-Leadership always brings us back to how do you live into the words on the wall, the vision, the mission, because we can put them up there and go about life, but so many of us as companies have vision and mission statements that are way bigger than us. And going to this event reminds myself and my team, because I'm not the only one that goes, team members come along, is how do we live into this each day? And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but we have to use the tools that these incredible minds have come up with to help us live this each day of our life. The last one I have written down here is Jefferson Fisher. And he talked about conversations. The next conversation was his topic. And he said, let your breath be the first thing you say. And for someone that is words get ahead of his thoughts, that's very impactful for me, is to think in a contentious conversation, in a difficult conversation, they're necessary, but slowing them down, giving them a time, taking a 3-second breath is incredibly impactful and helps the tension release. So that really hit me. Is like, okay, David, when you're frustrated, take a breath before you respond. Let your breath be the first thing you say. And I just, that really hit home for me.
So, David, you took time away from the dairy. You took members of your team with you to head out to Denver, halfway across the country, to spend a few days getting out of the day to day and into the room with some of the greatest leaders in the world. But one of the biggest struggles that a lot of dairy producers have, and just leaders in general, is actually taking the time away from a 24/7 business to make time for yourself and for your own growth and development and that of your team. So, how, to you, what makes it worth it? And what's maybe some of the guidance you would give to other producers out there that are in that same boat of having a hard time stepping away from the day to day to go do something to get out of their everyday headspace?
Peggy, that's an incredible question because I asked myself that a lot. Like, is this worthwhile? Everything we do has a trade off. And is a leadership event like Entre-Leadership something that adds value? And 100% it is. And it makes me go back to a comment that John Maxwell said. I heard him say it a couple years ago, was that you're your own lid, or you're the lid to your organization. And that really puts in perspective, if I don't continue to grow, I'm the lid for my team. Maybe not for the whole company of Oakridge, but I can't grow past my lid. So if I don't continue to grow and raise my lid, we can't continue to grow as a team. I can't continue to grow personally. And Entre-Leadership is an incredible event to help you grow and to blow through your lid and to grow that, continue to grow that lid. And I think John Maxwell said it great. Your lid, you're your own lid. And how do you get past that? Is by taking time to grow yourself and to grow those around you.
And you've already, just a week after coming back from Denver, you've already put some of these things into action with your own team to be able to do just that. So, time well spent. So, David, I want to get into your mind as a leader with the last 5 questions that I have for you in our time together. So, short answer questions, but really excited to get your perspective. And so, up level 5, question number 1, in 3 words, how do you want to show up each day?
The 3 words that I want to show up each day is passionate, thankful, and excited.
Did those moments come easy for you?
Some more than others, and it depends on the time. And that's how I want to show up every day. And I think it's a good reminder for myself to make, that's what my team deserves. So when I'm not showing up passionate or thankful or excited for the next challenge, I need to do a reality check and figure out why I'm not there, because that's what my team deserves.
And that's where you look at the vision that's bigger than yourself there, huh? Oh, that's a good one. All right. Question number 2. What does success look like to you?
So success looks like for me is a team that's working together and hitting their goals. I'm a huge believer in that. It takes a team, and if the team's not jiving, we're not being successful.
That plays right into your working genius that you shared before. Galvanizer, and then what was the second word?
Tenacity to get it all the way across.
Yes, it plays right into that. Isn't it funny how sometimes the words just make sense, right? Like things you couldn't describe before, now you're like, I get it, I see it, and now you have words to put around it. Speaking of words, what are the words you live by? Question number 3.
The words that I live by actually came from another speaker at Entre-Leadership a year or 2 ago, John O'Leary, and he made the comment that says, say yes to being used for good. That really resonates with myself, because sometimes saying yes is not the easy way. And I think a lot of times it's not the easy way. However, it's the good way, and it's most of the time the better way. But back to John Maxwell, not everything good is uphill. So saying yes to being used for good is one of the models that I try to live by. And when someone asks for a favor, and it's a little bit not convenient, it's the right thing. Say yes to that.
Oh, that's a good one. Very good one.
I can't take credit for it though. John O'Leary is an incredible speaker, and he that one really resonated with me.
What a great takeaway, that words that you live by. And question number 4, who are the thought leaders that you follow? I know we talked about several of these famous speakers and leaders. Anybody else that you would add to that list?
Well, I think that most of the people that I've looked up to are speak at Entre-Leadership, and if I had to pick two people, I think it would be John Maxwell and Pat Lencioni. John makes things so relatable and is not better than anybody. Just his delivery is incredible. And Pat's working genius has really changed our team here at Oakridge, has changed my life and the way I view things and being thankful. Actually, another speaker said it. Jim Collins said it. Be thankful for what people are and not frustrated for what they are not. And that is putting these things that into action is what makes the difference.
Ooh, I think I need to put that sticky note on my wall. That's a good one. And last question that I have for you, David, what's your next up level? What's the area of your life, personally, professionally, that you're looking to take to the next level?
That's a great question as well. And I said earlier, and I believe this is, first, I want to work on being a better follower of Christ. Second, I want to work on being a better husband and father. And third, a better leader. And I really believe and pray that if I can do it in that order, all three will grow exponentially. And if I get that order mixed up, it won't grow. So my goal is to grow each one of those. And whether it's pouring into rewatching Entre-Leadership to make sure I got the points, or just trying to live it out with my kids and being present for my kids at home.
That is a super powerful up level that you've set upon yourself. And I think it goes back to this different view that sometimes we can get a little detached from. And what I mean by that is sometimes we may believe that our work is one thing, our home life is another thing, our faith life is another thing. But truly, like, these are not 3 different silos. And I'll put it in egg terms. It's like one TMR. They really truly all mix together, but one key ingredient, get that right, and then add in the next one, add in the next one, and they're mixed together. Just as we wrap up, final thoughts on that concept of really bringing together these different aspects of life and looking to just optimize and serve in the best capacity in each one.
So I really appreciate that thought, Peggy, because I would say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have had all three of those in different buckets. And the more I grow as a leader, and Entre-Leadership that's helped me see this countless times, is life is not silos or buckets or whatever you want to call it. It's a TMR. It's all together. And if you're not good in one of them, everything else is going to struggle. So how do you really put your faith, your family, and your work together and prioritize each one of them and make sure you have all three ingredients? Because if you pull one of those out, it doesn't work. And then how do you go to events to help bolster that and to continue to grow that? Because all of them, it's all uphill. Like John Maxwell said, it's all uphill.
I love, David, that you've wrapped up with exactly where you started from, which also says what a powerful impact that phrase has had on you in the last week since you've came back from Entre-Leadership Summit. And for those that are out there listening that are really intrigued by the experience that you had, I'll throw a link in the show notes so that they can check it out and gain and grow from this conversation today, and hopefully plant a seed for those that are looking for more ways to become a stronger leader in every part of life. And so with that, David, thanks so much for jumping on with me today. Any final thoughts?
No, thanks so much for having me, Peggy. It's truly been a privilege, and I recommend personal growth for anybody that's listening, and Entre-Leadership is a wonderful tool to get that. The Warren team does an incredible job.
Well, thank you so much, David. You just heard from David Moser with Oakridge Dairy in Connecticut here on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. And if you like this message that you heard today, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating or write a review and tell us how much you enjoy hearing these stories and messages from dairy producers, advisors, and leaders from across the country here on Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and until next time, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy.